Welcome to Everyday Ethics, everyone. I'm your host, Michael Liebowitz, and I'm really looking forward to this weekend. But first, I'm looking forward to spending this half hour with you, as has become my daily weekday. What's the word I'm looking for here? Routine. It's something that I really enjoy doing, and I'm glad that you are here joining me today. So, and now remember, always you can ask whatever questions you'd like to ask. That's perfectly fine with me. Oh no, too loud. That is perfectly fine with me. Let me see something here real quickly. Okay. All right. It's perfectly fine with me if you ask me any questions you want, but I do have an interesting topic. At least it's interesting to me. So I was reading an article today. Actually, the article is called Everyday Ethics, and it's by a guy called Thomas Shanks. Now, the article's, I think, mentions a lot of good things. It talks about how most people are preoccupied with issues, say, like immigration or, economic stuff like that, but that most people don't discuss or aren't, involved in everyday ethics, which is exactly why I came out with this show. But then the author of the article uh, quotes approvingly a book called The Leadership Compass by John Wilcox and Susan Ebbs. This is the quote that he cites approvingly. Moral behavior is concerned primarily with the interpersonal dimension of our behavior, how we treat one another individually and in groups, and increasingly other species and the environment. And then the author of the article says the key here is that morality brings us into contact with others and asks us to consider the quality of that contact. Notice the author roots ethics entirely outside of me, outside of you. It's always something else. It's how you treat other people, it's how you treat animals, it's how you treat the environment, but it has nothing to do with how you treat yourself, according to this author. And too many people take this. Ayn Rand called this the fallacy, I believe, of the frozen abstraction, where somebody takes one subset of a topic, in this case, one subset of ethics, which is altruism, and assumes it preempts the field. So this person thinks that the reason you need ethics is because you have to deal with other people. It's how you treat them. It's how you treat your dog. It's, whether you're cutting down trees, I guess. I don't really know. But as we talk about, ethics is fundamentally about you. Ethics is fundamentally about how you can live your life to maximize your well-being and your happiness. Right now, notice there's no justification in this article. In that quote, you don't know the article because you haven't read it, but I did. There's no justification. There's no argument. There's this bald assertion that ethics is primarily about how you treat others, your impact on other people, your impact on animals, your impact on the environment. Well, okay, well, what does that leave for me? And what does that say about me? Am I not worthy of action? Am I not worthy of being the beneficiary of my actions? And why are other people so important, but I'm not? But I guess in the view, I should be important to you, but why not important to me? Now, as we saw, I believe in our very first episode, Ayn Rand has showed that the fundamental unit of ethics, value, is genetically dependent on individual life. That once you have individual life, you have value, and she shows how life is the standard of value, your individual life. But this is so common, this attitude that we should be living for everybody else, that everybody else is so important. Is it any wonder that people have self-esteem deficits, that people don't feel good about themselves? How could I? If I believe that the right thing to do is to always put others first, that everybody else and everything else at this point is ethically worthy of my actions, of my effort, but I am not, then what am I to think about myself? I think that's important. That's one of the reasons we have this show, is to show you that you are important. You should be the most important person in your life, and your actions should be built around benefiting yourself. So he says, ethics poses questions about how we ought to act in relationships and how we should live with one another. Ethics asks us to consider whether our actions are right or wrong. It also asks us how those character traits that help humans flourish, such as integrity, honesty, faithfulness, and compassion, play out in everyday living. I don't even disagree with that. What I disagree with that, it's fundamentally about other people. So now he says this. Ethical norms and principles have developed over time and across cultures as rational people of goodwill consider human relationships and how human beings act when they are at their best. So, again, it's assuming that relationships are the focal point of ethics. But again, now he mentions people of goodwill, but saying people are goodwill is itself a moral judgment. So how are we judging that these people have goodwill if there's not yet the ethical standard or the ethical principles that he's talking about? He's saying people of goodwill were struggling to develop how to deal with each other, and that's where ethics evolved. So he has the concept of goodwill before he even has ethics. But yes, principles have developed, ethical beliefs have developed. Does that make them accurate because they happen to evolve? They happen to develop? I mean, after all, different cultures and different religions tout different ethical beliefs. According to the Torah, it's immoral to eat pork. According to the Quran, it's immoral to eat pork. In Hinduism, I don't think they eat any animals in Hinduism, but I could be wrong. But I know they definitely hold the cow to be sacred. So, different religions, different cultures have different ethical principles. How do I decide which right? Do I just do what the dominant culture tells me? What about a culture that embraces slavery? Do I say, okay, well, the culture embraces slavery. That's an interpersonal action. Therefore, I should embrace it. There's no reason involved. There's no figuring it out. There's no assessing facts. It's just this is what happened to evolve. But embedded in all this is his moral judgment, the author's moral judgment, that these are sound ethical principles, that people are people of goodwill. Oftentimes I've come across people and they'll say to me, such and such is he's a good person. Okay, according to what criteria is he a good person? Or you'll often hear he's a good person, and then after that follow details that show that maybe the guy's not a good person. Yeah, I recently was watching an interview with the Iron Sheik. And by the way, we have super chats, we have super stickers, and they are appreciated. So I recently watched an interview with the wrestler, the Iron Sheik. And the Iron Sheik was talking about another wrestler, Nikolai Volkov. And the Iron Sheik says, I love Nikolai. Nikolai is my good friend. Nikolai is a great person, but Nikolai is a no good son of a bitch. Well, there's a clear contradiction there. Now, the Iron Sheik's a little touched upstairs. I mean, I'm not, let's only use this example to go so far. But the point I'm trying to make is that he's clearly contradicting himself and doesn't realize it. And how many other people do that? Say, well, this guy's a good person, but, well, what standard are you using to evaluate him? Why are we not, what's the word I'm looking for? Pressing the narrative. Well, I am, but more people I think should, that you are worthy, that your actions should benefit you, that ethics is about how you can flourish, how you can live, how you can make the most of your life. So let me see what we got here. There's some more stuff. This I like. A Times Mirror survey released a few years ago showed that for the first time in a decade, Americans named ethics, or rather a decline in ethics, as one of the most important problems facing the United States. Okay, that's good. But what do they mean by ethics? What are they counting as ethical behaviors that have declined? What is the problem? Ayn Rand wrote in Atlas Shrugged, and I'm paraphrasing here, but what you need is not a return to morality, but to discover it. That actually what was happening in that book, which is great, was the end point of the morality that had failed. And I think that that is often what is really occurring. So here's some, she says, this author says, rather, that there's many reasons people don't behave ethically. They think their small effort won't really make a difference. But notice that embedded in that, my small effort won't make a difference to whom? My small effort in benefiting myself will certainly make a difference. My small effort in benefiting the people that I personally love will certainly make a difference. So, why do my efforts have to be a grand scale? Why do my efforts have to benefit people that I don't know? And I'm not talking about going out and hurting people or refusing to help somebody that's in emergency need. I'm just talking about making it the fundamental. The fundamental should be you trying to benefit you. Another yeah, and I like this one. People may think badly of me, but no, people won't think badly of you if you do what's right according to the general cultural consensus. People might think bad of you if you actually behave morally, if you actually behave ethically, if you actually pursue your own best interest, then you sure to be maligned with, well, you are a selfish human being. You're only worried about yourself. You're no good. You should be sacrificing for others. James Valiant says utilitarianism is madness. Absolutely. That is basically the ends justifies the means. You are looking to act in a way that benefits the most amount of people. Um, it's hard to know the right thing to do is another reason that people don't act ethically. Perhaps, but we need to talk about what the right thing to do is, not assert it. We need to show, to demonstrate, not just say, go along with your dominant culture, do what the dominant culture tells you to do, what the dominant culture says is right. We actually need to discover the principles of right and wrong and then act accordingly. What's the other thing here? My pride gets in the way. What? What the hell does that mean? My pride gets in the way. Pride, properly conceptualized, is a virtue. It's pride in what you are doing, pride to be doing the right thing, proud of your accomplishments, your achievements, your intelligence. How would pride get in the way of doing the right thing? What people normally mean is a fragile ego is getting in the way, a fragile ego. My friends won't like me. I won't get invited to anyone's home. I know I'll just never date again. Well, whom are you trying to date? And now he says that well, what about people pleasers? Okay, simple answer, don't be a people pleaser. You are not on this planet to please everybody else. There's no God in heaven that has planted you here so that you could attempt to please everybody else at your own expense, so that your own time, effort, and intelligence are directed toward everyone else. So your own self respect and self esteem are sacrificed in the pursuance of making everybody else happy, regardless of what their standards happen to be. That's not why you're here, right? Nobody has put you here to do that. There's no judge in the sky that's saying you should do this or you should do that. All that exists are you and reality. Really, all that exists is reality because we are a part of it. And within this reality, we have to act in order to survive. We have to act in order to flourish, to maximize our well being. That's all there is. Ayn Rand wrote it best: causality versus duty. She identified the principle of realistic necessity, that if we choose to live, there are certain actions that help us to do this. That's simple. So the guy here says, he says, people need a systematic way to approach living an ethical life. I agree 100%. We need a systematic way to approach it. But systematic, if you have a system where one principle contradicts the other, how does that help? Or if your system isn't derived from reality, how can you practice it consistently in reality? If all my life is to be spent on how do I relate to other people, how do I relate to the not hurting the environment, or how do I relate to pets, where's room left for me, for my own well-being? So they have some questions that he says that you should ask. And I don't actually have a problem with these questions. Did I do more good than harm today? And then consider the short and long-term consequences of your actions. Sure. But I need to be the fundamental in there. And for you, you need to be the fundamental of, did you do more good or harm to yourself today? Not, and then of course ask, you don't want to be violating other people's rights. You don't want to be initiating force. That's not in your self-interest. But the first question should be, did I do more harm or good to me? That's what you need to ask yourself. And the next question already, did I treat people with dignity and respect? Again, it's all about others. It's okay to ask that. I agree. We want to treat people with dignity and respect, but once again, that should not be the fundamental. Then, was I fair and just today? Justice is a virtue, of course. Why? Because it's in my interest to be just. It's not in my, it's not a virtue because of some deontological duty that I have toward other people to be just to them. I'm just because it's in my interest to be so. And then, well, there's some questions that I think, was my community better? Notice that these questions are not necessarily bad. I said this before. The problem is in treating them as the fundamental starting point of ethics, which they are not. Then he gets into moral leadership and things of that nature. But I really just want to stay on this. No Name says, if some people pleasers like to please others, are they doing it for themselves? Indeed, that is, in my view, a cop out, because what you are asking ultimately is, if I've adopted irrational values already, is it then in my interest to practice those irrational values? It is irrational to start your ethical development and your ethical analysis by saying, oh, how can I please other people? If you start rationally and you say, okay, I have to live in reality. In order to survive, there's certain actions I have to take. In order for me to function, in order for me to flourish, there's actions I need to take. You won't get to the point where people pleasing is in your interest, right? So you can't start with saying, well, what if I adopt this irrational value? Well, for instance, well, let me use a more extreme example. Suppose I adopt the irrational value of cutting myself. Would you then say to me, well, it is one of your values, so you are a masochist, so it does please you, therefore isn't it in your interest? Aren't you doing it for yourself? There's a great essay by Nathaniel Branden entitled, Isn't Everyone Selfish? I highly recommend it. I think you could probably find it on the internet. It's in the book Virtuous Selfishness. You probably should just buy yourself a copy. But that is one of the things that he covers, is that selfishness entails identifying the motive, the beneficiary of your actions. It's not just being motivated to behave in a certain way. Persephone says, in time travel fiction, there's the idea that even the smallest action can change the future, but people don't believe that a small action in the present can change their own future. Can I just tell you something as an aside? I hate time travel stuff. I hate time travel, movies, books, everything, because it ends up just, and I guess there's this movie that I've never seen called Hot Tub Time Machine that addresses this issue. They're so contradictory that you end up just losing your mind. Because if I'm in the present, right, say if the present, the past, and the future all exist, and you say to me, oh, but if you go back to the past, you're going to alter the future. But this means that the future me would have already done this, right? So it's contradictory. I don't like time travel stuff, but it's simply a myth that your actions, even small ones in the right directions, don't make a difference. They do. Start to eat a little healthier. Start to exercise a little bit. These make a difference. Read. Develop the habit of reading on a regular basis, reading self-help, motivational stuff that'll edify you, that'll make you feel better. This makes a difference. Your actions, small or otherwise, make a difference. Now, I would recommend you don't stick with the small stuff, right? But small actions do make a difference, right? This is a half-hour show. It's making a difference to me. It's helping me to grow. It's helpful for me to learn how to be able to do a show on my own without a co-host. or without anybody to interview. So it's helping me in that way. Talking about ethics is certainly helping me. It's helping me to grow, helping me to expand my thinking on the subject. And I certainly hope it's helping you. But fundamentally, I do this show for numero uno. And I hope if you're listening, you're watching, that you're doing it for numero uno. Uh, Persephone says it's called in relation to the time travel. It's willing suspension of disbelief, Michael. I get it. You know, um, and it's not that I like Back to the Future is fun. It's just that the movies are too contradictory. I like some logical coherence in my entertainment. Um, Jim Valiant throws out a great platitude, but platitudes, some of them, they're very good. A journey of 1,000 miles starts with a single step. I wonder if Jim started that single step with the stuff that I sent him to read this morning. But Jim, just so you know, I wanted to tell you, but you were otherwise engaged. If you don't, you don't feel obligated. I know you won't. Never mind. Fuck all that dumb shit. So Persephone says she has a habit tracking app so that she has a checklist of all the things she wants to do every day. That's awesome, Persephone. I love that. And I'm happy that doing the capitalist corner every day. Um, what? Jason Adams, objectivist Matt, says he's just playing hopscotch. I have no idea what you're talking about. Mr. Deagle says, do I read fiction for inspiration? I have not in a long time, but properly, good afternoon, Jason, but properly, yes. Art, including fiction, literature, will motivate, will inspire you. I'll give you an example. In Ayn Rand's book, The Romantic Manifesto, um, she writes about the purpose of art. And she had written I think an introduction to the book 93 by Victor Hugo. And she said, that based on, oh God, I got to get my train of thought. Oh, she liked it because everybody was pursuing values. They were principled people. Even though she disagreed with the principles, it was still inspiring. So there's a scene in the book that, although I hate the character and I think he was wrong for what he did, it is so powerful to me because it illustrates the point. So the book takes place in 1793 during the French Revolution. So you have the revolutionaries and then you have the old guard, the monarchy, the aristocracy. So the aristocracy brings in this guy. He's going to be their leader. And there's a couple guys they're on a ship of some sort on the ocean. And there's a couple guys that are very skeptical of the new leader. So in the meantime, there's a big ruckus on the ship. Somebody forgot to tighten all the cannonade that were below deck. So this thing is sliding back and forth. It's puncturing holes or getting, in the side of the boat. It's a very dangerous situation. The same guy that forgot to secure it risks his life to go and make sure that this thing is secured below deck. So afterward, the new leader brings the guy on the deck and, he's very pleased with the guy for risking his life to save the ship. He's also very unpleased with the guy for causing the problem to begin with. So what the man does, he pins a medal to his chest and then shoots him and throws him overboard. The two other guys said, we have found our leader. And the thing is, like I said, I don't approve of the action, but I still get why they felt they had a leader. Why? Because they had a guy who knew in his own mind what was right and wrong, although I think he was mistaken. In his mind, he certainly was not. And you had a guy that would act decisively like this and didn't question, didn't hesitate to do it. And that inspires me, even though I disagree with the values of the person. It still inspired me because he was willing to do what he believed was right. And that inspired me. Now, of course, people can come up with examples where I'd say, that's not inspiring, even though the person did what he thought he was right. I get it. But in that book, in that moment, that scene inspired me. No Name wants to know what belief about yourself took the longest to change. It depends if you mean consciously or on a deep level. On a deep, deep level, the hardest thing that I've ever had to change, and still working on it, is abandonment fears. My abandonment fears um, were so deeply embedded in me that they don't just disappear. And so even though I've largely got a hold of it, that doesn't mean they don't ever come back. It doesn't mean I still don't deal with separation anxiety. So that would be, I think, the hardest. But I don't, I haven't done a lot of thought on what the hardest. One of the hardest beliefs for me to change was a belief in God. I strongly believed in God. I wanted to believe in God. I've read a lot of arguments for the existence of God, and breaking away from that was not easy. Mr. Deagle says, "Do you get some value from art other than literature and movies?" Um, Music, I do. I like music. Uh, I'm not a visual person, so uh, you know, I certainly can appreciate the skill level and the talent and the effort that goes into a good piece of visual art, whether it be a painting, a piece of carpentry, a sculpture. But the visual art doesn't do the same thing for me. I'm not a visual person. So, but music certainly, I do get a lot of value from. Jason Adams says that he just started the auto book, Think Right or Wrong, Not Left or Right, by Anders Injamarson, whom he met at the Irreplaceable Spark Conference, and he's quite enjoying it. Have you read it? I have not. No Name says, "What if there's a God? I'm atheist, but you never know." No Name, what if pink gremlins visit me every night? You never know. How could you know? Right? It's what I'm illustrating is it's an arbitrary claim. The evidence isn't there for the existence of a God. So just to say, well, you never know, that's like a brain in the vat question to me. When somebody says, well, how do you know you're not just really a brain in a vat and this isn't all just a simulation? Well, there's no evidence for that. So I'm not going to just start playing games with, well, what if this or what if that? What if this? I'm going to go with what the evidence of my senses tells me and what my rational mind tells me. But I mean, I appreciate the question, certainly. Let me see what else we got here. I think I've gone through all of the questions and everything else. I hope that everybody is getting ready for the weekend. I hope everybody has a absolutely wonderful weekend. I hope that you live your best life. I hope you do a lot of things for yourself. I hope that you take a step closer to happiness, a step closer to flourishing, a step closer to being the absolute best human being that you are capable of being. And remember that behaving ethically, being moral, being rational has nothing to do with your innate level of intelligence, or you're born with talents or anything else. Rationality, ethical behavior are matters of choice. It's a matter of being committed to the facts, committed to the truth, and doing your best with those facts, with that truth. All right, everybody, I am getting ready to go for the weekend. I'm going to have a nice meal tonight, I hope. I'm sure I will. Why would I hope? I'm sure I will. I have a little bit of reading to do. I've got a big weekend ahead of me, a lot of work to do. I appreciate you all so much. Thank you so much for taking this half hour with me. And remember, always, please, 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 this is vital. Keep this in mind over the weekend. Be ethical. Thank you.